living consciously and being aware of who is in charge in every moment, in every precious now, is really the work. We have these two sort of paradigms or viewpoints that we live from, or even personhoods, that we exist from. We exist from our pain body, as Eckhart Tolle would say, and we also live from our higher awareness of ourselves. And we can actually dually live in both spaces at the same time. And what happens if we live from our ego or our pain body is that we're constantly trying to fix things on the level of matter. And what I mean by that is, like, we will pick people that we have had problems with in the past. We will pick situations that we have had issues with in the past that we've suffered from, and we will recreate these things. We will go back into relationship with people who are just like the people that we were finally away from. We will pick situations that are exactly or energetically like the ones that we finally got out of. And it's almost like we have this PTSD, and we're going into this virtual reality to try to learn how to deal with that past pain. But the problem is, if we don't become aware that that is what we're doing, we simply suffer again. And we might get to a certain level of awareness where we're like, oh, this again, and we start identifying with it. We believe that that's just who we are. We are this victimhood, and we can even see great things for other people. I think that's one of the first stages of becoming aware and becoming conscious, is that we start seeing possibilities and potential for others, but we can't self it. You know what I mean? It's so easy to see other people's potential, other people's possibilities, because we're not stuck in that story. We don't have that pattern that they have about them, like we do about us. And so it's about, the only way to break that cycle of that pattern is to become aware that it simply is a pattern. It's not an identity. It's not something we're stuck in. It's not something that we have to continue to do. And we can heal from that suffering. We can heal from that pain. We can let go of that ego, and we can move past that as soon as we understand what's happening, and we can decide that it's time for something new. Now, that doesn't always mean that we know what to do. And that's the other part that the ego tries to step into. The ego tries to have answers for everything, and the ego wants to have plans, and the ego wants to have everything mapped out. But the problem is that each new now is fresh and different and has never existed before. So there are certain synchronicities we can have with things that have worked in the past, but it's never going to be exactly the same as it. So it's about becoming energetically aligned with how you want that next now to appear, instead of just going through these ruts of recreating these old patterns. And the only reason those happen is because the universe, your higher being, however your source, is attempting to help you to heal by seeing it from the past, hoping that you will recognize this as a pattern, and that you will be able to find a different way to move through it. You'll be able, and it's about defining yourself differently. It's about understanding you as being differently, because we tend to try to fix other people. That's what you see a lot of times in religion, is that it's so much about judgment of someone else. It's what someone else is doing. It's someone else's sin. It's someone else's, not coming to their idea of God, or not fearing their God. It never has to do with themselves. But your only empowerment is you. Your only empowerment is your awareness, how you identify, how you move into your space, whether you're coming from a space of unconditional love, or if you're coming from a space of fear. There's only two. There's no other choice. It's just that fear expresses itself in different ways, like hate, judgment, despisement, depression, anxiety. This is the way that fear exhibits itself. That's the facade, or the face, or the mask that fear will use or bring up. And a lot of times it even might sound like reason, like, this is the reason this won't work. And that is not of unconditional love, that is of fear. And that's not always to say that we should always jump off of every single cliff. Some fears are actually founded, because you want to be ready for things before you move forward, but you can always get ready energetically. And then as soon as it's a point of where you can't do anything but, that's when you know that the Spirit of God, that's when you know that your higher being, your universe, however you think about it, is stepping in there. Perhaps many of my angels are stepping in there, and they are ready to guide you through that process. It's always time. It's always available to you, but you have to usually prepare yourself before you get there, or else you're just pushing matter against matter. And you want to actually work in the energy field, because energy field is always now, it's always true, and you always will get inspiration of what to do next. Because if you're doing matter against matter, the only thing that you have is the past. That's all you have. But this is the new now. That past never will reoccur. It never actually happened, because we reframe everything. When scientists go back and they study our memories of things, they find out that almost 100% those memories are false. So even our ideas of how things happened in the past are incorrect. I once saw a really interesting show where someone was put back 100 or 50 years or something like that, because he thought he would be successful. And what ended up happening was he started doing things that had come true later on as successful, but they hadn't percolated yet. Like, he bought an oil field, but the oil wasn't ready to actually be extracted from the earth at that point. So he owned, he was a millionaire in the future, but he wasn't right there at that point. And that's the same thing. A lot of times we will, when we're doing through motivation and doing matter against matter, we will get into spaces where we're just energetically not ready for. But so you want to lead with the energy of it. You want to lead with the awareness of it. You want to lead with the identity of it. And when you do that, you can become something well before your matter is. So it's not about pushing forward matter and then expecting the energy to catch up with you. It's about pushing the energy forward, and then the matter catches up to it. That's the way to actually live your life in a space of joy and peace. Because that's why a lot of times you'll find people that are successful who have worked hard and they're exhausted. They're absolutely exhausted. They're not really all that thrilled about what they did, because they wore themselves out pushing matter against matter. And then you've met people, I'm sure, who have seemed to just magically, manifested things and become things and done things and accomplished things. And it's because they became energetically so, and then the matter just had to catch up. So that's really the point of empowerment that is really important for you to take in, is understanding how to do that, and understanding what's happening for you, especially when you start seeing patterns. And we're given a really great clue, because one of the things our brains are great at is pattern recognition, because that's how we learn how to see threats. Because that's also the fallacy, is that our brain is good for two things. Our brain is good for finding things that we're afraid of. It's good for protecting itself and protecting us. And it's also good about collaborating with anything that we believe. And that's the magic sauce. Because if you say something is true, if you state something, if you proclaim something, your brain will start finding evidence that goes along with that. If you started saying that the sky was green, your brain would start finding every reason why that was true. If you really truly resonated with that, and that's what you said, that's what the brain would collaborate with to find. It would find those pieces of evidence that collaborated with it. If you were to say that I am healthy, your brain would find every reason to collaborate to the idea that you are health. If you said, I am sick, your brain would find every single ache and pain and joint and and everything that, I'm not able to run like I used to, or whatever it might be. It's going to find everything. It's the same with absolutely everything. So we have these great brains that, number one, pattern recognition, so that we can hopefully see those patterns, so that we can reframe ourselves, reframe our identity, become into awareness and consciousness, and understand that we are not really these flesh blood beings. This is part of our fun, that we get to express ourselves, but we're really energetic beings. And because we're energetic beings, life goes so much easier and so much smoother if we become it energetically first, and then let life catch up to it. And that's truly the work. Truly is the work. That is hard work. Staying in joy is hard work. Staying in that inspiration. It's something you constantly have to work at all the time. Be monitoring and be aware and be conscious of, so that you can step out of those patterns, step out of that other identity into a new identity that you proclaim, that you actually prefer. And that's when life begins to catch up with you in that. I want you to have an amazing day. In fact, I'm knowing you're having an amazing day. And love, peace, and release.